can uplift our environment, clear the negative history of the environment, which FLFE also does. It's one of the benefits. Then we're again freer. We're free of those influences, and then we can be our best self and use that extra energy to create the life that we want to create.
Hello, Judah family. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. This is a super special video that we are creating for you. It's not just a video, it's an experience. So go ahead and enter into the experience by opening up your heart and spirit for what's going to come forth. I am so very, very pleased to have a part of the Judah family, a very integral part, and our business partners, Focus Life Force Energy. And I have with me here today, Jeffrey Stegman and Clayten Stedman. And they are the owners and founders of Focus Life Force Energy, which we will heretofore reference as FLFE. And when I love these guys so much, I had been connected with the service and had the FLFE service for a long time before Judah came around. So I like to imagine, and I'm quite certain that the energy, the atmosphere that they provided to our home was a part of Judah's coming and being a part of our lives. And in the beginning of our time with Judah, we asked Judah about this FLFE. And Judah began to prophesy about these two gentlemen that you're getting ready to meet. And Judah said that these two guys are the Wright Brothers of consciousness, like Orville and Wilbur Wright were to inventing the airplane, putting humanity in the air. Think about that. Two guys, Orville and Wilbur Wright, they managed to revolutionize our entire lives by putting us in the air and giving us flight for all of humanity. And so Judah said that these two guys, Jeff and Clayten, are the Wright Brothers of consciousness. And that got me so stoked. I don't think that was an overstatement. I think what these guys are doing is inventive, creative, and can be globally effective to raise our consciousness. So I want to introduce you guys, let you start telling us a little bit about who you are, why you're doing what you're doing, and all about FLFE.
I'm Jeffrey Stegman.
And I'm Clayten Stedman.
We always love to do that. So FLFE, I could start and hand it to you, Clayten. Right. It's a service that activates this high consciousness environment, like you were talking about, this beneficial, like pristine sanctuary environment in our homes, businesses, or around a cell phone or object. So we discovered how to activate a high consciousness field, and there's no frequencies being sent. It's very much like the way we as human beings have the ability to connect with others at a distance, whether it's prayer, Reiki, just thinking of a loved one, the whole mother-child twins studies that are out there, that FLFE works in a very similar way to activate a consciousness field that's very beneficial in that it has so much more life force energy there. It's at the level of consciousness of unconditional love.
Yes, and I have been, I will say, greedy, and I have all the FLFE services layered on. I absolutely love it. It has made a profound difference. I have on my cell phone, on my home. I'm testing for the guys the FLFE water program, and I'll just take as much of the protection as I can get. And I will say that as I layered on these protections, as a person that works in high consciousness fields, I could experience a lot of negative thought forms coming from different places. And some of them could be extremely difficult and rattling, disconcerting, and just downright difficult and unpleasant. But as I layered on these FLFE services, all of that dissipated and disappeared. And I'm so very thankful for that. So especially for any of you out there Well, whatever you're doing, whether you're doing a workaday life or you're doing high level consciousness work in psychic realms or Reiki healing or anything like that, FLFE's got a profound help to offer you. So guys, what do we want to know about how it works and what you guys have to offer?
Well, we'll be talking today about levels of consciousness. So perhaps the first thing we should do is talk about the scale that we use.
Yes.
A lot of us are used to grades in school, which is, 1 to 100%. And the scale that we're using is a scale that was developed by Dr. David Hawkins. He was a psychotherapist, wrote some best-selling books. The most popular one, I think, is Power versus Force, his first one. And Dr. Hawkins is known for, for many things, but at least in this context, for creating what we call the map of consciousness. So the map of consciousness is from 1 to infinity, or maybe perhaps 0.0001, or how many zeros before a 1. There has to be some energy to measure the existence of something. So in the human realm, the levels of consciousness go from 1 to 1,000, and each level of consciousness has a certain number of microwatts of electricity associated with that. So as we go up in consciousness, we are able to hold more electricity. Now, in the back of Power versus Force, there is a chart called the consciousness compensation chart that talks about how one person, let's say at 500 on the Hawkins map, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute, how they compensate for hundreds of thousands of people below 200. And the higher you go, the more you compensate. So perhaps one of the things that we can remind each other today of is that to make an extraordinary contribution to humanity, you can be a loving car mechanic, a loving housewife, a loving farmer. I mean, doing work in the spiritual realm. I started coaching in 1995. That's great. And love is a force that changes the world. And however you spread your love, whether it's pulling wrenches or doing readings, you're still spreading love, and that makes a difference.
Exactly. And to that, Clayten, I would say one of the first questions we get for Judah, we usually when we're one-on-one, is, what is my purpose? Mm-hmm. And Judah will say, well, you might want to hear something more elaborate or intricate or more exciting, but basically your purpose is to love and to come into a place of love enlightenment and just to be what you are in whatever role that you have. And I think that that's, a natural inclination to want to change what we do, change our role, thinking that that's going to make us happy. But I think the first thing we want is to bring in that high consciousness field to exactly where we are and what we're doing in this moment. And that's where transformation happens inside of us and outside of us.
Yeah, love doesn't stop at 500s on the Hawkins map. The higher levels, like 600, for example, where enlightenment begins, it includes love, and it I guess it transforms or transcends that love in a way that is unique, and the word nonlinear is coming to mind. So just a little bit about the Hawkins map before I pass it back to Jeff or to you, Anjie. So the Hawkins map, it's logarithmic. So one point up on the Hawkins map is 10 times more powerful than the point below it. So 202 is 10 times higher than 201. 200 is where integrity starts on the Hawkins map. So 20 is shame, 50 is despair, 100 is fear, 150 is anger, 200 is courage, 250 is neutrality, 300 is willingness. Well, 350 is willingness. 400 is reason, so the professions, the legal professions and accounting and things like that. Then 500 is lovingness, 550-ish is unconditional love, 600 is peace, and then from 700 to 1,000 are the states of what would be called classic enlightenment. I know we're going to talk about lovingness today quite a bit, it sounds like. I just wanted to say that about 1% of the population is over 500. Now, that was a little bit different in 2019. We've sort of gone down since then. Hopefully that was what is known as a breakdown, a breakthrough in the personal development world, and we're in the breakthrough phase. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think 500 is a goal that we can all achieve.
Yeah. So tell us also, Clayten, where is the general population at on that scale as a whole?
Well, in 2019, the world was at its highest place that it's been yet. Now, there's always little parts of the world that can be quite high, certainly individuals that can be very high. But the world was at, I think it was 240, in the 240s on the Hawkins map. The world was below 200 up until 1986, just to give you some perspective. Jeff and I did a 3,000-year historical analysis of the level of consciousness of the planet at one point, just to get some perspective on it. So right around the time of the harmonic convergence in 1986, the world went above 200. And, it went back and forth a little bit, and then it started, going up more consistently. Fall of 2019, I think it was 248 in the last quarter of 2019. In April of 2020, during the depth of COVID, the world was at 100 at fear. And then it went back up over 200. And then when the Russia-Ukraine conflict happened, the world went down below 200 again. It's at about 195 the last time I checked. So to be pretty close to that.
So it sounds like, would it be accurate to say then all of us as a whole, humanity is kind of teetering on that line where we could potentially move into a more positive orientation as a whole? Is that correct?
We could think of it that way. That's the way I like to think of it. We're teetering on the upside, but there's also the teetering on the on the other side. Yes. So let's hope that it goes up. And there are countries that are quite a bit higher than that. I mean, probably Ukraine would be 50, in despair. I mean, it's horrible to be in the center of a war. I'm sure part of Russia would be there as well. Right. But there are countries, especially there are countries that are quite a bit higher than that, and it helps compensate for it.
Yeah, and one of the things that I hear Judah consistently bringing up for our folks is to, it's very difficult to face and think about all the things that are going on out there. But Judah keeps pointing us back to doing our own interior work, because as we're raising our own level of consciousness, that's really the best hope to make a change for everyone else, for all the people around us and our human consciousness. Does that ring true for you? Or is there anything you would add to that or adjust that statement? Or
well, we tend to think about rising in consciousness as increasing freedom. So it's you could look at the world that way, and ourselves personally, that as we rise in consciousness, which in the first 90 days in the FLFE service, people rise on average 30 points, which is quite a large jump. So that's freedom from, patterns that don't serve us anymore, from unconscious beliefs, from maybe from outside influences like EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, or other things that are restraining us in some way. It's often more ourselves than the outside, probably. But that freedom, it comes in peace, and love comes with increased consciousness.
Yes. And, I was listening to another interview that you guys did. It was really amazing. And Clayten made a statement about environment. And it really got me thinking, one of the gifts that I have in my life right now is that my environment has radically shifted. And as far as everything about where I live and who I'm in contact with and what kind of media I consume and what I eat and all of that. And I thought about his comment, and I thought, I really believe that the miracles that are happening for me right now are directly correlated to shifting my environment, of which FLFE was obviously a really important part about that. But I'd be open to anything you guys have to share about that, because I think a lot of times some of our folks, they're really giving it their best college try to be open, to change, to surrender, to listen to really good spiritual teaching and apply it to their lives. But I think their environments are really are the sticking point, maybe, that they're not aware of. And it's not that what they're doing, it's not that their thinking and their emotional state, that they're missing something. It's that the environment is not supporting the work that they're trying to do on the inside.
Yeah, environment. I think you've said it before in these interviews, Clayten, that it's more important than our willpower.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, I mean, we can be trying, as like you said, trying as hard as you can using your personal willpower, but the level of consciousness of the environment and other factors in it can overwhelm that or be more powerful than that. And Anjie, you mentioned thought forms, like negative thought forms that come in. Those people can think their own thoughts, can be part of an environment like a local thought forms or even larger scale. And also the house itself or the land itself, depending on what happened there in the past, that, the crystalline structure of the drywall and the concrete and the rocks and even the soil can hold the consciousness field for something low that happened. And that is affecting us and we don't even know it. It's there. So that if we can uplift our environment, clear the negative history of the environment, which FLFE also does, it's one of the benefits, then we're again freer. We're free of those influences, and then we can be our best self and use that extra energy to create the life that we want to create.
Thought I would say a couple practical things about environment, Anjie, if that's okay.
Please.
So we did a webinar just on how to raise the level of consciousness of your environment. And one of if you do the free trial, one of the emails you get talks about ways to raise the level of consciousness of your environment. And just even looking at you live in an environment of beauty and abundance.
Yes.
That's, and that's great. And it's nice to celebrate that with people.
Yes.
And one of the things we can do is, for example, if there's a room, if we could even take one room in the house and we went in and cleaned that room, ceiling to floor, end to end. I lived in an apartment one time. It was not a very nice apartment. And it just didn't feel like home. And I'd been there a year and a half. And so I took a week off and I cleaned the apartment from the inside of my door. I cleaned everything. I mean, underneath the sink, I crawled underneath, wiped down every single surface. I was either going to get it to feel good or I was going to leave. And I had FLFE on it. And it was when we just started the business. And it felt good, but it didn't feel like home.
Right.
And so I cleaned it. I washed the ceiling. And I finally got to the radiator. It was a hot water heated building. And people used to smoke in it. And so I remember when I lived in an apartment in Vancouver, British Columbia, we had somebody come in and do the carpets. We just moved in, it just been painted, but it just smelled smoky. Oh, and the person said, "Oh, I know what it is." And they pulled off the top of the radiator and they sprayed this citrusol cleaner because it was an orange citrusol based carpet cleaning solution. And out of and off and on the fins of the radiator, this smoky, dark brown, orangey goop slime came off of the radiator because it had been decades of smoke, right?
Right.
And I remember that when I cleaned my apartment and I did the same thing and the same thing happened. And when I washed, I took the wand and I sprayed it on the radiator and all that stuff came off. And immediately it felt like home.
Wow.
Within minutes. And I swept, like I took the gunk up. It was tar, nicotine. And so that's an exaggerated story, but what's the truth So, we could just start with one room in the house and just clean it top to bottom, take all the books off the bookshelves, dust them, do everything and just clean it and bless it.
Mm-hmm.
And, and then if you've got enough money, paint it, make it nice, make it like you have a nice looking room, put some nice drapes up, put some nice furniture in, just do what you can within your means, but that will make a difference. And then you have, your home is supposed to be a sanctuary, and that should be a sanctuary within the sanctuary.
Right.
Could be your bedroom, could be your office.
Yeah. And, that's something I wrote about in the course. I have a chair that I meditate in. I've meditated in for years. And it's interesting because people that come to our house may or may not know that, but no one ever sits in that chair. It's like it just has this kind of sacred aura around it, and people kind of instinctively know that this is like the holy spot. So, even that, like if you don't have the environment that you'd love, that you want, that you desire for your home, like Clayten said, just one room. And if you don't have a whole room to yourself, how about one chair, one place?
Oh, yeah.
It's a holy, sacred space. And talking about environment, I love that you mentioned that, because I actually brought a question with me today. Somebody posted this on our YouTube site, and I thought, I'm saving this for Jeff and Clayten. This is so good. It's an important question because I hear this a lot. There's a lot of folks that we encounter that feel that they're a mismatch vibrationally to their home, to their partnership, in their workplace, maybe with their parents. And so here's the question that came. It said, "Thank you, Judah and Angie. I'm now wondering if those who think positively outweigh negativity. I've heard this, but when I see myself working so hard on staying positive, while my spouse keeps his head in watching and listening to negative things on television and in media, I wonder, are we canceling each other out?"